So now it's time to implement voting. Now, reading and writing to a database in Firebase is actually not as hard as you think, but you do need to know a few things in particular. So the first thing I'm going to have Ben do here is Ben is going to create a new file in the JavaScript folder called Firebase voting.js. Camel case.
Firebase
Camel case, uppercase V. Yep. .js. Perfect. And then we're going to link that Firebase voting.js file in our home.ejs file. So scroll down a little bit. Right below that first script tag, we're going to write script. And we're going to set the source equal src equal to js / Firebase capital V voting.js. And then we're going to end that script tag. Now this will link the external JavaScript file for us. Go ahead and save it. Control S. Yeah, it's a little different than Mac, sorry. And then open up the Firebase voting.js. And we're going to actually write our code inside here. Nice. So we've seen what happens as soon as the user is logged in. Anytime we want to make sure that logged in functionality stays, we just need to include our Firebase JS / Firebase auth.js. But we're also going to attach a Firebase voting.js file here so that anytime someone wants to click vote and they want to go to our application and decide to vote on something, they can do that. But first, we have to decide, what are we going to be voting on here? What do you think we should vote on? We could vote on where to eat, where to go to lunch.
The best sport.
The best sport.
Swimming.
The best city, sure.
The best subject.
All these are great ideas. The best baseball team is the Dodgers. I don't even know why we'd ask that question.
Or yes or no questions, so we only have to do two.
Yankees are not bad. They have Aaron Judge. He can hit the ball. The Red Sox. Ugh, stop.
Homecoming Queen Jeff or Ben.
Homecoming Queen Jeff or Ben. Honestly, I think that would be a tie. I think that'd be a tie. I would take either of those positions, queen or king, but Ben has bigger muscles, so I would say I gotta be the queen. For sure. Because if I were the king, it would be Shakira. I don't even care if she shows up. I would make sure Shakira wins the homecoming queen either way. But in this case, we're gonna vote on food, because that's my favorite thing in the world. So we're gonna vote on which restaurants to go to for lunch. This is gonna say where to go to lunch. Cool? Now the first thing we need to do is we need to create a function. Would you create a function for me? Called add restaurant. And that restaurant is going to take in the name of a restaurant. Restaurant name. Capital N name. Love it. And we are, hit enter. And what we're going to do is we're going to hook into our Firebase database. And we're going to be able to add a restaurant to our database. But to hook into a Firebase database, you need to get a reference. And a reference is, it's a reference to a position in your Firebase database. Now everybody go back to your Firebase console. And I'm actually going to go ahead and just delete all of the data I have in here. Delete it. You should, Ben is the man, that is very true. You should click on the database tab on the left, and it will take you into your real-time database. Now, if you click on the second tab, the rules tab up there, the reason why we want to be logged in with Firebase is because the rules tab determines who's allowed to read and write to our database. This rules area is a giant JSON object. And what this JSON object determines is who is allowed to get information from our database and who is allowed to put data into the database. Now, if you look here, what does it say about who is allowed to read or not? Auth, exclamation point, equals null, which means as long as the auth does not equal null. So as long as the person is logged in, they can read from our database. How about if they can write?
Same thing.
Same thing. They can only write to our database if they are logged in. This is why we need to teach authentication first, because otherwise no one's allowed to add to our database or even know what's in the database. It will not send them information. Now, the cool thing about Firebase is if you head back to the Data tab, is we can just go ahead and add data by clicking on that little plus sign right there and adding in a key value pair. So, Ben, would you type in restaurants into name real quick? And then in the value, let's click the plus sign again. And let's just say first, and the second value will be McDonald's, because McDonald's is a place, and I want you to click add. So now we have just updated our database manually. Now this is fine. You're always welcome to update your database manually, but that's not really how any real database should work. Almost every database allows the users to go in and update data. So right now we're showing you how to manually update and delete data. This is fine for showing it off. But what if we want to actually add data on our own? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to create a reference. So back in our code, at the very top of our function, we're going to say var database equals Firebase dot database, and we're going to make database a function. We're going to call that method on the Firebase object. So now we have stored our database in a variable called database, and on the next line we can say var restaurant ref, capital R please, thank you, equals database dot ref, and then dot ref, and then make that a method call as well, a function call. Yep, exactly. Then I just want you to go ahead and make two more, hit enter twice, and then we're going to say restaurant ref dot push, and then we're going to say, just make that a method call, dot key, like that. And that is all we're going to do. Then we're going to save this file. And what this is doing here is the dot push will push in a new value onto our database. That ref on line 3, what that's saying is I want you to take a reference to the root of the database. Now the real-time database in Firebase works like a gigantic JavaScript object. It's just a huge object. And so we can determine exactly where we want to change that object, and we do that by creating references to different locations in the object. Right now, when you just say .ref parentheses, it'll just take the root of the database, the very beginning of it, and then we're pushing nothing to it, but we're just grabbing a key. This will create a key that we can do whatever we want with. And so I want you to go back to, I want you to click preview, since our application is already running, and preview the running application, and then pop, let's say, pop into a new screen, open the app, and open the console. Perfect. Click the console button. Great. So the user is not signed in yet. Let's go ahead and sign in with Google. Perfect. So now we should be signed in. And we can see here the user signed in. We have our credentials. This is cool. And now inside the console, we're going to run that function we just created. What do you call it again? Add restaurant. Right? And then we're going to use both of the parentheses, and we're going to run the function. And we're going to see what happens. So it returned undefined, but we didn't get an error, did we? So then I want you to head back to your Firebase console, and I want you to click refresh. Let's see if it worked. Okay, it didn't work. Let's see what happened. So we see there, okay, is that what we call it again? We didn't, but we should have pushed a new key. Let's go ahead and push something else. Let's make the reference to, maybe you have to do that, to the home. And let's run it again one more time and see what happens. Refresh real quick. The user is signed in. Let's go add restaurant. Okay. That should work. Let's see. I don't see anything being written to my database. Let's figure out why. Okay, my apologies. Let's go ahead and return that key at the end of the restaurant ref, right there. So right before the restaurant ref, right there. Yep, let's return that. So we're going to create a new key in the database, and let's save this file. And let's go back to the voting app, and let's refresh it. And then inside the console, let's run that function again, add restaurant. And let's hit enter. That right there is a key, and a key is a unique ID for any new value we want to enter into the database. So it's created a key, but it hasn't changed our database. It's because we didn't set a value for it yet. And you'll notice that if we do that in the database, if I just come in here and say a new restaurant, and I just add the first part, like a bunch of stuff, and I click add, it won't do anything. Because if the value is null, it just gets rid of it. So that's why we weren't seeing anything change in our database. But what we can do is, when we are pushing something, we can say, instead of pushing the key, we can actually just push a value into the root of our database. So we'll say .push, you can get rid of that, push, and then inside the parentheses, we're going to write a string that says, let's say, what's another restaurant? Burger King. Burger King. And then we're going to save, and let's go back and let's run it again. Add restaurant again, and let's see what happens. Okay, cool. We got a bunch of stuff. Let's see what our response is. Okay. We got some information, database, key. Did it work? I don't even know if it worked or not. Let's find out. Let's head back into our database. Let's see if it worked. Oh, and there we go. We got a unique key, and we got a value that says Burger King. Cool. We've now updated our database from our clients, and we can now change it to be whatever we want. And then now all we need to do is be able to read information from the database, and we're chilling. So that's what's next. This video got real long, so I'm going to end it here, and we'll move on in the next video.